Let's dive into a part of Shakespeare's work that often gets overlooked in the shadow of his plays, his poetry. You might not have realized it, but his two long narrative poems were among his earliest works, a key point that's been asked in exam. It's like seeing the first steps of a literary giant. So hold that thought as we explore them. First up is Venus and Adonis, published in 1593. Can you recall who this poem is all about? It tells the story of the goddess Venus's unrequited love for the beautiful youth, Adonis. It's a fascinating poem. At times it's pastoral, at times erotic and comic, and then deeply tragic. Now, here's a golden trick for the exam. The poem is made up of 199 stanzas, or a total of 1194 lines. That specific number of lines has actually been asked in exam before, so let's be careful and remember that. And here's a detail you'll love. The poem begins with a dedication to Henry Wriothesley, where Shakespeare calls the work the first heir of my invention. This is a classic UGC trap. So let's be super careful, it's been asked in exam. Moving on to his next work, The Rape of Lucrece, which came out in 1594. This one is a bit different. Shakespeare himself called it a graver labor in its dedication to the same patron, the Earl of Southampton, a connection that has also been asked in exam. This one's a narrative poem, but it's famous for its long, powerful speeches. Let's decode this. It's written in a specific type of stanza called rhyme royal, a form used by poets like Chaucer. It's a powerful and serious poem, and it's a great example of his evolving poetic talent. Now here's a fun, tricky one you'll definitely want to note down. The Passionate Pilgrim, published in 1599. This was an anthology published under Shakespeare's name by a man named William Jaggard. But here's the rub. Out of the 20 poems in the collection, only 5 were actually by Shakespeare. This one's a classic UGC trap, so let's be careful. And here's something you probably didn't expect. A very famous poem from this collection, The Passionate Shepherd to His Love, isn't by Shakespeare at all. It was written by his contemporary and rival Christopher Marlowe. This is a crucial distinction and a point that has been asked in exam. While these narrative poems are well known, let's not forget the incredible lyrics he scattered throughout his plays. If he wasn't our greatest dramatist, he would have been a great lyrical poet. Can you recall Ariel's song from The Tempest? The one that goes, "Full fathom thy father lies"? That's a classic example and has been asked in exam. The same goes for the beautiful song, "Take, oh take those lips away," which appears in Measure for Measure, another gem that's been asked in exam. His lyrical talent shines through these short, impactful songs, like the Willow song in Othello. So, when you think of Shakespeare, remember his complete body of work. 38 plays, 2 narrative poems, and 154 sonnets. And hold that thought. While 36 of his plays were collected in the first folio in 1623, his poetry was not included. That's a really important fact and something that's been asked in exam before. It reminds us that no original manuscripts of his plays exist today, but his genius lives on through these published works. So, we've talked about Shakespeare the playwright and the narrative poet, but what about Shakespeare the sonneteer? Can you recall how many sonnets he wrote? That's right, he wrote a whopping 154 of them. Let's explore these tiny masterpieces. First, let's talk about how we even got to read them. They were first printed by Thomas Thorpe in 1609, a crucial fact that has been asked in exam before. Now, here's a mystery that has puzzled scholars for centuries. The dedication in the collection mentions a Mr. W.H. This has sparked so much speculation about his identity, and this is a classic UGC trap, so let's be careful. It's another point that has been asked in exam. Let's decode this. The sonnets are generally divided into 2 main groups. The first group, the majority of the sonnets, is often believed to be a reflection of his friendship with a high-ranking young man. This beautiful bond is a major theme and has also been asked in exam. Then we have the second group, which focuses on a different and much more mysterious figure, the Dark Lady. Her identity is one of literature's great unsolved puzzles and a point that has been asked in exam. So you'll want to remember this. Was she Mary Fitton or someone else entirely? The mystery is part of the fun. Now, here's the golden trick. Understanding the form itself. The sonnets follow a specific rhyme scheme. A-B, A-B, C-D, C-D, E-F, E-F, G-G. This specific pattern is what we now call the Shakespearean sonnet. At the end of the third four-line stanza or quatrain, there is a sudden change in mood or thought known as the volta or turn. You love this part as this is where the poem shifts and often gets its greatest power. The sonnets are praised for their incredible style and how they use words to create vivid, sensuous images. Certain sonnets are even described as thick clusters of starlight, and this beautiful phrase has been asked in exam. Hold that thought while we talk about some of the most famous ones. Can you recall the opening line of his most famous sonnet? It's Sonnet 18, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" This iconic line has been asked in exam, so it's a must know. Another one to remember is Sonnet 130. "My mistress' eyes are nothing like the Sunday." This poem playfully turns the typical romantic cliches on their head. And it's also been asked in exam. And here's something you probably didn't expect. George Bernard Shaw wrote a short comedy called The Dark Lady of the Sonnets in 1910. In the play, Shakespeare meets Queen Elizabeth I while trying to find his Dark Lady. This is a fun, specific fact that has been asked in exam. So let's be sure to note it down. It just goes to show how much his sonnets have inspired other artists for centuries. Let's dive into what is arguably the most famous lyric poem in the entire English language. You know the one. "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" This isn't just a poem. It's a perfect example of Shakespeare's genius. So hold that thought as we explore it together. The speaker starts with a simple direct question to a young beloved. "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" The rest of the poem is an answer, but maybe not the one you'd expect. Let's decode this. The speaker explains that the beloved is actually more lovely and more temperate than a summer's day. Why? Because summer has flaws. It gets shaken by rough winds. The sun, which is personified as the eye of heaven, can shine too hot or become dim. And as we all know, summer is fleeting. It has all too short a date. It's a reminder that everything beautiful eventually fades by chance or nature's changing course. But here's the golden trick. The speaker tells the beloved that their eternal summer shall not fade. How is this possible? Now here's the part you'll love. The final two lines of the poem, the couplet, reveal the secret. The beloved's beauty won't die or fade away because it's being preserved in the poem itself. The poem, with its eternal lines, will live on as long as men can breathe or eyes can see, and in doing so, it gives life to the beloved's beauty for all time. This one is really special. Up until this point, the first 17 sonnets were all about the speaker trying to convince the young man to have children to preserve his beauty. But with this sonnet, the speaker realizes that the young man's beauty doesn't need children, it can be immortalized in my rhyme. So, this poem is the speaker's first real attempt to use his art to defy time itself and grant the beloved immortality. It's a beautiful thought, isn't it? The belief that art has the power to last forever and carry beauty down to future generations is the central theme here. Can you recall those moments when you're lost in your own thoughts, going over old memories? That's exactly where we start with Sonnet 30, also known as Went to the Sessions of Sweet Silent Thought. In the first part of the poem, the speaker tells us that when he sits alone, his mind is like a court of law summoning up all his memories. This is a brilliant metaphor, isn't it? He finds himself sighing over all the things he sought but never got. He adds to his old sorrows, creating new grief over dear time's waste. You can almost hear the sadness in the words, especially with the beautiful alliteration of woes, wail, and waste right there at the end. In the next section, his grief gets even more specific. He admits that he can cry easily now, something he's unused to. He weeps for precious friends hid in death's dateless night, those who have passed away. He also mourns for vanished sights, the memories of places and experiences that are now lost forever. Here's something you probably didn't expect. This grief hits him so hard that he feels it as if it's new, even if it's a long since cancelled woe. The third part of the poem continues this sad account. The speaker goes over all his past grievances as if he's reliving them. The grief feels new even though he's paid it before. Pause here and note this down because it's so clever. Shakespeare uses words like account, losses, and pay throughout this section to create a metaphor that links his emotional losses to financial ones. It's an interesting way to show how much he has truly lost with time, isn't it? But here's the golden trick. The final two lines of the poem give us a sudden and beautiful turn or volta. Right when the speaker is at his most depressed, he transitions into a direct address to his dear friend. You love this part. He explains that whenever he thinks of this friend, all losses are restored and sorrows end. It's like a magical cure for all his sadness, a panacea for his troubled mind. It shows us that while the poem broods over themes of memories, guilt, and grief, the most powerful theme is the redemptive power of a loving thought. Sonnet 116 is one of Shakespeare's most famous sonnets, offering an ideal and absolute definition of love by stating what it is and what it is not. The speaker argues that true love is a constant, unchanging force that overcomes all obstacles and endures through time. What love is and is not. In the first quatrain, the speaker begins with a powerful declaration. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. He insists that genuine love does not change when faced with changes in the loved one. It doesn't bend with the remover to remove, meaning it is not flexible or easily swayed. The second quatrain uses a famous metaphor to describe what Love Island. The speaker compares love to an ever-fixed mark or a guiding star for ships lost at sea. It is a beacon that looks on tempests and is never shaken. This means love is a constant guide that remains stable and unaffected by the storms and troubles of life. The third quatrain returns to what love is not. It is not time's fool, meaning it is not subject to the destructive power of time. The speaker personifies time as a figure with a bending sickle, an image of death and decay. While time can destroy physical beauty, like rosy lips and cheeks, love itself is not affected by brief hours and weeks. Instead, it bears it out even to the edge of doom, enduring until the end of time. Can you guess the power of the final couplet? The final couplet serves as a powerful conclusion where the speaker stands by his definition with absolute certainty. He declares that if his statements about love can be proven wrong, then he must have never written a word and no one has ever truly loved. This bold, almost legalistic statement adds rhetorical force to his argument. The sonnet's power comes from this intense, disciplined structure and the unwavering conviction behind every word. While the imagery itself might not be the most original, the masterful control of rhythm and tone creates an argument for eternal love that feels both passionate and completely assured.